guess when it comes to coming up with creative campaigns, it's probably quite difficult for somebody who hasn't done it before. What would be your top tips for coming up with a really powerful creative campaign if you were to sort of nail you down in your top tips?
I think for any creative process to begin with, and this is another exercise that we do, is that we get too focused on quality first, right? The quality of an idea. And that hinders the creative process. So first start with quantity, right? So take one idea and then see how many different versions of that same idea you can take, right? Okay, the ball, let's say it's a ball. It can be small, it can be heavy, it can be rough, it can be multicolored, it could be huge, as big as a hot air balloon. So that's taking one idea, right? And kind of seeing how many different iterations of that one idea you can do. And then the other is kind of distinctive. How do you take one concept and do completely different things to it? All right, it's a pair of jeans. The jeans can be worn as fashion. The jeans can be, unstitched and used as a parachute. Just go as crazy as you can. And I think that's the first step of, let's say, ideation when it comes to creativity. But before you get to that point, I think it's really to understand who do you want to speak to, right? What's something very unique and true to them, right? And then you kind of brainstorm around this idea. And then the next step is then you've got this huge, let's say, board of ideas, both distinctive ideas and relative ideas. Then you start focusing on quality. All right, much to like your Grimace example, right? How are we going to leverage the resources we have? How are we going to make it as easy as possible for people to create these videos themselves? How are they going to share them? Where are people going to see them? How easy it is for people to access the product? Can we make sure the product is available for people to take that action? So I think that's kind of what that process would look like, I think.
And I think what you raised there is that's why sometimes campaigns will look lucky, but they're planned and they're geared for success. And one of the things, one of the lessons that I did a workshop a number of years ago, nearer the start of my career than now. And it was a fantastic workshop with a gentleman called Trevor Morris, who is a complete genius when it comes to campaigns. And he has this sort of acronym, which is POSTAR, okay? And there's been various other versions and iterations of these kind of things. But this workshop I did years and years and years back was such a defining moment for me, because it helped shape what were perhaps scattergun creative ideas into some form of structure. And I think structure is very important to have when it comes to a creative campaign, because lots of people can come up with an idea, but they can't really justify it. And if you can't justify it, you can't sell it into the people who sign off on budgets.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, what's this acronym? Well, the first part is positioning. So where are you at now? And where do you want to get to? The second one is objectives, setting the objective of what it is that you want to achieve. Who are the audiences you want to touch? What are the personas? The S for strategy, coming up with something that's really going to resonate with the audiences you're trying to hit. The tactics that you're going to deploy. What are those tactics going to be? How are you going to do them? What does it look like in terms of success? And then I think critically is the last two, because these are the ones which will get you the sign off on these kind of projects. A is for admin. So what are your budgets? What are your resources that you can play with? What are those things that you can draw of internally? What are you going to need to use an external agency for, or an external person for? And then R, results. How are you going to measure it? What is it that is going to be the measurement of success for this campaign? And I think probably creative people are probably quite good at the P, O, and the S and the T. They're probably good at that. The A and the R is actually a critical part in what's going to get you through most doors in terms of selling that idea to a prospective client, or selling that idea to an internal person, particularly when it comes to getting the approval of the guy in finance.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, yes. But I think like really strong teams understand the strengths of all different disciplines and skill sets, right? So I would, a creative team, their role is to be as crazy as possible, right? Wyden and Kennedy, Unilever, they had the Unilever account. What's that brand called? Old Spice was a dying brand, right? And Unilever said, look, it's a dying brand. We're going to shelf it. This product's going nowhere, right? It's not relevant in today's time. And Wyden Kennedy's like, look, just give it to us. And they just gave it to their interns. Literally, they just gave it to their interns. And their interns just came up with the most crazy, stupid, outlandish identity and visual system to it, right? Which revived the brand. So if we were already thinking about admin resources at that stage, and that's why you have great creativity, then you need a strategist, right? And a tactical planning team to give it the legs and the hands, right?
Was this the Terry Crews?
Terry Crews and that
Fantastic.
ridiculous guy on that horse with that, chiseled chest. Like it was just the weirdest. People who know Old Spice never would have even related that to the brand because they're like, it's dead. Who cares? We can do whatever we want with it. So yeah, I completely agree. I think surround yourself with a strong mix of people. I think that's what's important, right? Someone I've been lucky in that way that I am highly creative, but I'm highly commercial as well. So I understand how to speak to creatives to get the most out of them, right? Because you need artists, you need people who think out of this world and don't think in boxes and channels and strategy and tactics. I can speak the language of those people in the middle that are responsible for, let's say, laying the pipes to get that beautiful oil all across. And then I can also speak to the guy who's going to sign the check. And I think that's very important if you want to get a great campaign together.
Now, obviously, that we raised about getting a great campaign together. You do need money for a lot of campaigns. You do need money. It's not necessarily the case. I've done plenty of free ideas in my time and low cost ideas. But how much should I be spending on my marketing? And I think when it comes to marketing budgets, there's no hard and fast rule of thumb. If you're a liquid death, I'm sure your marketing budget is going to be very, 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 very high.
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zero when they started.
Well. But, what's the rule? And as I say, there is no hard and fast rule, but the kind of what a lot of people base it on is 10% of your revenue. And if you're growing, then you take the average from last year's figures and you put it with your projections this year, and you can get to 10% of what your expected revenue is going to be. And if you're a brand new business, and there are lots of brand new businesses that think, how much should I be spending on marketing? Firstly, we work with a lot of tech companies, and there's a tendency with tech companies to put it all into the operations because they need to build the product. And without solid marketing, they're not going to hit any of their targets, and nobody's going to know about their product or technology. So if you take the same rule, if you've got seed funding of, let's say, $500,000, it's absolutely fair to put $50,000 of that into brand creation, branding, building your brand messages, your channels, and maybe a bit of top line research as well to understand more about your market so that you know that the tech product that you're building is going to hit the mark. And obviously then a launch campaign, you need to be able to hit your customers. You need to know who those customers are and hit them strong with some smart creative ideas. And $50,000 might not sound like a massive budget, but you can do a lot with that towards getting your brand off the ground.
So if I was a business, okay, let's say I'm not funded, I'm a business. And just to make it easy for everyone, $100 is my revenue. How does that $100 kind of break up in terms of, and of course, marketing is a very big term, right? So what percentage of that $100 should I allocate to marketing, and within marketing, right, what are the different kind of tactics or tools that I could use?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, to start with, I would allocate something maybe between 10, 15, 20% even towards market research. The more that you know about your customers, the more that you know about the people you're trying to appeal to with whatever product it is that you've got or service.
Yeah. And that's helpful for not only marketing, but also product development. Everyone. Right, for the business in the whole, yeah.
Everybody, if you've got insights that you can base stuff on, then that's going to be very valuable. It's often an area which people don't spend on, but it's the foundations of success for a lot of great campaigns. I'd probably then say, well, look, digital marketing is incredibly important in this day and age, and as we said earlier on, 50% of people are spent 50% of time is spent online looking at online content, so naturally you've got to be putting a fair amount of budget. So 30, 35, maybe even 40% of your budget needs to be going towards digital marketing tactics. So what are you going to do with the rest of it? Well, public relations is a fantastic way of getting things out there for not a massive amount of money. Using tactics like that, you're going to get into media that might feed into your social media channels as well. So public relations is
and direct marketing, guerrilla, right? Go guerrilla.
And that's where the rest of the 30% of the pie comes in. What are you going to do with it? And I would pump it all into creative campaigns, and I'd add a little bit in for measurement as well. So 5 to 10% of your budget, because if you do have to report in for people and say, well, what was the success of this campaign? You need the measurement tools to be able to do it. So, taking that $50,000, you've got market research, you've got digital marketing. How much can you actually allocate into it? Maybe somewhere around 30%, 40% if you're lucky, into creating those truly creative campaigns.
Yeah.
And that 40% or 30% or however much it is that you're putting into those creative campaigns, that's going to be what delivers brand. It's going to be what creates and shapes the brand, and it's also going to be what wins over your customers far more than the digital marketing. That's going to hook people in, but what's going to make people love your brand or fall in love with it or really want to engage with it? That's the creative source.
100%. I was at Seamless the other day in an endless sea of payment providers and technology businesses and banks, and you couldn't really tell the difference, right? In a sea of bottled water, I was looking for a punk tall boy of probably tap water, but that would have stood out. So yeah, definitely.
It's a great way to bring it to a close. Obviously, follow us on all of the social channels, and thank you very much for listening to what has been hopefully a very insightful episode of Aeolian Sounds.